Sometimes game developers just unabashedly do the right thing. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 things we wish every game company did or would learn from. Number 10, Titanfall 2 is a big improvement on Titanfall 1. Like, that's not what I'm referring to, but I love Titanfall 2. I think it deserved a lot more attention than it got, and particularly for why it's on this list though. Despite being very critically well acclaimed and very well received by those that played it, it was kind of sandwiched between a couple of bigger releases and didn't sell as much as it could have, and yet Respawn still just gave away a ton of DLC for this game. Not like a shirt here or some little goofy addition, but maps, full maps that basically any other game would charge for. Map packs cost money typically, and Respawn was just like, you know, there's enough of that. How about 6 map packs? Like, for months after that game came out, they were just giving it away. And on top of that, when Respawn announced they were going to just give away all of this DLC, it wasn't just, hey, here's a nice thing. They also said, we are against the season pass model. Publishers, listen to Respawn. Number 9, the developers of Warframe removed a microtransaction because a player used it way too much. It was essentially a 67-cent virtual pet randomizer. And while that may sound pretty benign, especially considering Warframe is a free-to-play game that frankly is a lot more justified in including microtransactions, they got a little antsy about when a single player used it like 200 times. It's essentially a slot machine when you look at it that way. It's a lever you pull and it might give you something you want, it might not. And I think that they realized that when somebody did it 200 times. I mean, that's a lot to sit there and just 67 cents, 67 cents, 67 cents. I mean, that's $134. That's a lot of money. If you spend that kind of money pulling a lever to maybe have a good virtual pet, maybe it's something that you have some kind of proclivity towards abuse, maybe like gambling, without knowing anything about it, and maybe it was irresponsible of them to put that in front of you. We want to treat each other like people and not like coin machines, and I think that was basically the reasoning behind removing this microtransaction after realizing what it was. And thanks! Seriously, you could have made so much money from this. I mean, it sounds pretty clear like they have a conscience and didn't realize what they made. And when they saw what they'd made, it went away. Good frickin' job, Digital Extremes. Number 8, Dying Light, a game that was 3 years old when this happened, was releasing free content packs that actually had significant impacts on the gameplay of the game. For instance, they added a silencer, which might not sound like a big thing, but a silencer changes the dynamics of the game quite a bit. They also added a number of weapons and 10 other pieces of free DLC over 2017 and 2018, which that's a lot for a game that old. Number 7, Tripwire, the creators of Rising Storm 2 Vietnam, have been giving away money to mod their game instead of making people pay for DLC. In fact, the DLC that they made, they just gave it away. They're just like, you know what, you paid for our product and that's good. Number 6, a game by the name of Fae the Awakening was an indie title that did pretty good when it released. So they decided they were going to make all their DLC for free. They weren't expecting it to do so well, so they thought, as a thank you, we'll do this. They also thought that the free DLC model would sell a lot more copies of their game because indie is an ever-expanding market. And of course, so the first DLC didn't exactly light the world on fire as far as sales for their game, but the second one they timed very well. It was near the time of a Steam sale, and combined with a lot of goodwill from the first DLC, the second DLC became a very big thing. First off, it added multiplayer, and there was all the goodwill, and they saw a 1,572% increase month to month thanks to that DLC, which is, to be clear, a lot. Like, it's starting to sound like maybe free DLC is a good business model. Number 5, probably the most requested thing in the Spider-Man PS4 game was the Spider-Man suit from the first Spider-Man movie that anyone cared about, the 2002 Sam Raimi one. And although it was planned to happen before anybody began going wild about the requests for it, and let's just be clear, they went very wild, they had planned to give the suit out for free, but as it turns out, the stars aligned quite a bit on that, being everybody was extremely into getting that suit. And I'll say that with the requests coming in as they were, I'm sure they would have added it without a plan, but it was a plan, so it was kind of serendipitous. Still, you really can't argue with that kind of fan satisfaction. Something that highly requested just given away for free. Like, they also could have gone the other way, where they saw all the demand for it and been like, you know, we could charge for this. And they didn't. Good on you, Insomniac Games. Number 4, Resident Evil 2's remake is friggin' great. Let's just go ahead and say it. Congratulations to Capcom. Now, they could certainly use this as a platform for any number of interesting, and when I say interesting, I mean bad, microtransactions. They're not doing that. In fact, they announced on a live stream that they have a lot of post-launch content coming. Now, we don't know for sure that all post-launch content will be free, but we know that pretty much everything they've announced is free. They're adding a Ghost Survivors mode, which is like a completely different mechanical mode. Basically, it'll include a lot of random stuff, placements for enemies, ammo, etc., and it'll give you the opportunity to play as different characters. They'll also be adding classic skins. These skins are the costumes from the original Resident Evil 2 game, and again, that is free. Now, currently this stuff is only happening in Japan. We don't know when it's hitting the Western market, but that's great. Again, that kind of stuff, the new modes and skins, that type of thing, can easily end up as a microtransaction because it's very tempting to make all the money you can out of everything. So good job, Capcom, for resisting that temptation. Can't wait to see it in the West. Number 3 is the No Man's Sky Foundation update, and I can't imagine a more appropriate name for that update. Foundation brought so much more to the game that we had to go ahead and make a video about how it had done a lot to redeem No Man's Sky, because No Man's Sky, let's be completely honest, launched as kind of a turd. They way overpromised and they way underdelivered. And the Foundation update makes it into pretty much damn close to what they promised. I mean, it really brought the game up more than a little in terms of quality. The visuals got a major upgrade. The water added to planets was very cool. And all of the building stuff, just everything is upgraded to a point where it's like, oh, this is a AAA game now, which is nice. Very nice. Like, it laid the foundation to do bigger updates like adding multiplayer, which they did. And that's basically what redeemed No Man's Sky. And No Man's Sky is actually great now. The lesson here is not just to do good by your customers, but to not call it quits. Number 2, a 21-year-old Super Smash Bros. Fan who was dying of cancer was worried he'd never get to play Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. He tweeted about it, and there was a big outpouring of support on social media, and Nintendo sent a couple of reps out to his house with a copy of the game, and he was able to play it for 3 hours, which is not a lot of time, but when you consider how little time he had left, he died a couple days later, it really made him happy. He thanked everybody, and when you see things like this, it's like, this is kind of what people even make these games for. It's because the world can be harsh and bad, and games can bring us joy, even at the worst times. And finally, The Witcher 3's free DLC. Now, the expansions for The Witcher did cost money, and they were pretty much game length on their own. But other smaller updates like little missions, different outfits, various good things that are cool and in other games would probably cost money, didn't cost a thin red cent. And on top of that, they were really releasing them at a breakneck pace pretty much all the time. Among the best of those, of course, are New Game Plus and a couple of new missions that actually genuinely tie in with the rest of the game, which is, you know, great for free. Can you remember any times where a company just did something and you were like, why don't they all do that? And then you were like, well, it costs money. Leave us a comment, let us know. We want to encourage developers and publishers to just do better. Click like if you like this video, and if you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. The best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. As always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.